Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet Subcommittee, Local Authority Trading Company Shareholder. Please be advised that the meeting is being audio, video recorded and live streamed. I will now explain how the proceedings will work. When voting is required, votes will be cast by the raising of your hand. Are there any questions? Start the meeting. First item, election of a chair. Can I please have a nomination to be chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee, Local Authority Trading Company Shareholders for the 2024-25 civic year?
To nominate Councillor Allen. You could be on the committee all the year. Yes.
It's important. I do anyway, as you can.
Okay, great. And can I have a seconder for that, please? Okay. Is there any objection for Councillor Allen being elected as chair of this meeting?
I don't object to myself.
I can announce the result and I can confirm that Councillor Allen is chair. The chair will now proceed with the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Tamsin Thomas, having given due notice of discretion of the leader. Understanding order 5.12.1, Councillor Daniel Allen will be substituting for Councillor Thomas. Item 3, the minutes of the 19th of March 2024. For purposes of clarification, the minutes of the previous meeting can be moved and seconded by members who were not present at that meeting, although it is preferable that those who were not present should abstain from voting and commenting on the motion. I propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of March 2024. May I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
And if we can go straight to the vote on that one, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Notification of other business, there is none. Chair's announcements, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Recording will be available following the meeting on the Council's YouTube page and on ModGov. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out on the Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item 6, public participation, there is none. Item 7, annual review of North Herts Trading Company's building control. Ian Fulstone to present.
Thank you, Chair. You have the report in front of you. I think a couple of points on the report and then a couple of updates, if that's okay. I think this is the oldest of the local authority trading companies that North Herts have. Officer work started 2013. You'll see from the background paper list that actually Cabinet has been kept informed on this since 2014 and then moved on to the subcommittee when that was set up. Initially, this was a resilience model, and I think if I can just draw your attention to 10.4, the original business case projected a saving to the general fund of 1.34 million. The projection to 24-25 is that now there'll be a projected saving over the budget of 2.76 million. So I think that is a good demonstration that the business case was sound and the business still is sound. There was an AGM that myself as the shareholder rep attended last week, and my colleague Mr. Crowley, who is the director of the companies. And I think there's a couple of things I'd like to just bring to the committee's attention. We were made aware that at the Regional Local Authority Building Control Awards, that HBC had put forward a number of schemes that were actually winners. That was best residential conversion or alteration to an existing home, best medium new housing development, best public or community building, best non-residential building, and best residential and small commercial designer. So I think that says a lot. Also, the member of staff was given the award for Local Authority Newcomer of the Year. And if I just kind of go back to the 2023 awards, Local Authority Newcomer of the Year winner as well, Local Authority Superstar of the Year, and more important, Local Authority Building Control Department of the Year. So I think that says a lot about the consortium of 8 Hertfordshire authorities that makes up the local authority trading companies. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that clearly post Grenfell, the horrific incidents that happened at Grenfell, there's been a significant change in the regulatory field that building control now operates on. In the building control and building inspector is now actually a protected profession with competency-based requirements. And at the AGM, we were informed that currently all but 2 members of staff have achieved the competency levels. Some of them at an extremely high level, and there's two members of staff that are still working through. Because what we have now is, instead of a building control policy and regulation coming through what was DLUC then and would be now MHCLG, it's through the Health and Safety Executive. I think what's important to just point out as well is that the companies have employed a number of external advisors to help with regard to growth and development. One of those was actually an advisor to Dame Judith Hackett, and is advising the companies on policy and commercial growth. Happy to take any questions.
I don't have any, but would like to pass on congratulations to the award winners. Yeah, Ian?
So just really, so it's a question here. What are the sort of prospects? I mean, I don't know whether we can seek advice, whether I can ask this in sort of part one of, just in terms of, future business growth.
I think what we heard at the AGM, and I think I'll say this in part one, is that there's been a restructuring. So we appointed a new chief executive officer. The original chief executive officer chose to leave. We appointed a new one, and Gary Cass has got significant private and public sector experience in building control. He is obviously coming in, streamlining the company and getting it ready for growth. And one of the things that he has reported to me is that currently the growth at one of the companies is at 134% of where it was to be for the year after 5 months.
Fantastic.
Very good.
There are no other questions. The recommendation is the Cabinet Subcommittee note the report. The Cabinet Subcommittee make recommendations on the content of future reports and annual reviews. May I have a proposer, please? Councillor Albert, and a seconder, please? Councillor Bryant. We move on to the debate.
So I think just in terms, Chair, of that sort of second part, I mean, I welcome the report. Thanks to colleagues for the work that's been done. I think in terms of sort of future reports, obviously, I think the sort of the timing of these meetings and making sure, we probably say this for the other sections as well, but the timing of these meetings in relation to the reports that are available, and of course when the annual meeting's taking place, in order that we can provide any comments and feedback to our representatives, directors and so on, shareholder reps going to the annual meeting. I think that we just probably need to think through with committee services more generally around the meeting timetables. And say that applies to the other parts. I guess the other question now, and again, it will probably apply to the other papers too, in some respects, perhaps less the CCTV one, which is probably just sort of thinking about what are the sense of what interim reports. Clearly, obviously, if there is an emerging issue, I know that you and colleagues will bring that to our attention. But I guess maybe whether that's obviously by exception, but I guess just really maybe to understand, again, within the timing of these meetings, it makes sense to me, I think, to have some sort of in-year report as well. We obviously need to think about how many of these meetings are necessary. Certainly doesn't need to be more than quarterly, it may even be sort of six monthly, but probably something that just updates us on the progress. And again, obviously enables members of the committee to actually ask questions or indeed provide any further advice to those attending the meetings. And I think for me, that's part of the issue. There may be some things that fall into part two, depending on whether there's sort of some financial information, and that probably need just to think through with, obviously monitoring colleagues and officers. But I think that having some sort of interim report in year would be helpful from my point of view, sort of chair, and I'd obviously be interested to get the comment from officers as to how practical that is. But I'll probably sort of relay that's a similar comment to probably at least one of the other papers.
Okay. In that case, unless anybody else wants to speak, we move on to the vote.
Only I don't know whether Mr. Forster wanted to respond to that, whether you think that's a completely stupid idea or whether that makes sense in terms of the timing, Chair.
Of course, I apologise.
No, that's fine. The only thoughts I had is you may, one of the interim ones or at the AGM, wish to invite the Chief Executive Officer to present to yourselves. I think that would be a nice thing. And then potentially within the local partnership who delivered the training within their guidance document, they have a fairly hefty list of documents that shareholders should be aware of, as also there's a checklist. And I think currently it tends to fall to the shareholder rep as myself. It's just whether or not perhaps a year, every 2 years, you may wish to follow the audit approach that's in there and potentially have an independent person do that.
Yeah.
Just as a thought.
That I think is a very good idea, but because we haven't thought ahead or have that noted, can I suggest that we have that as a recommendation in the next meeting, that we look at doing an audit? Either if you guys have a think about when it would be best, whether it is to be done on an annual or a biannual basis. Is that okay? Excellent. Okay. Any other debate? We will go to the vote then, please. Voting in favour?
Yeah, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Next item is the annual review of North Herts Trading Company's Broadwater 100. Steve Crowley to present.
Thank you, Chair. So just to provide a little bit of an overview of the report, I think where the key parts are set out within section 7. In terms of the way that we are set up, we have Broadwater 100 Limited, 2 directors, one also another director is the second, and then we also have Broadwater 100 Property Management Limited, which we also have 3 officers of the council, which are directors of that. And the main focus at the moment is with regards to Hartness Court and Kitchen. We have 4 flats. I can report, and this is set out within the report, those 4 flats are fully let out now. So we, the council, let first of all directly to a holding company, which then pass on to the property company, and then it's a properties company to then let them use and their agents do so, and they have been let, I think, roughly with start at September to middle of September at fully let, and things are going well in terms of that. As it is only the first year, we're only in our first year of trading, there's not much to talk about regarding finances. We will have our first year, which will be a full year come the end of March of this year. We, the council, do get an income from the company as we let those flats to the company. We receive that amount no matter whether the company are successful in letting them or not. So that is part of the setup. And also within the report and the financial section, it sets out the fact that council has also provided loan to the company. And also that loan is also passed down to the property company to enable us to trade. And that's all been taken as part of the overall business case. That is a current position. Obviously, if there are any questions, then I'll do my best to answer them. Yes.
Are the flats rented out at commercial market rate?
They are, yes. We've actually achieved a higher than what we originally anticipated. Say supply and demand.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Recommendation is the Cabinet Subcommittee note the reports and that the subcommittee make recommendations on the content of future reports and annual reviews. May I have a proposer, please? Councillor Albert. A seconder, please. Councillor Bryant. Move to the debate. Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, again, support obviously the recommendations in the report. Again, appreciate perhaps Mr. Crowley's advice, but the logic would seem to me that we would have a further report really in after the accounts are done in March 2025. I'm not quite sure how soon after that will be, or whether we'd be moving into the new civic year, and that might be, but that seems to be the timing of a further report. And again, I guess the question is just thinking about overarchingly, bearing in mind the other papers we're discussing this evening, just thinking about the timing of that meeting alongside any other reports. So we're not just meeting for one item, we're meeting maybe for sort of 2 or 3 items, so we can get best value and so on from officers and councillors and the time we've been using on what's a really important issue. But yeah, I'm happy to take advice, around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no issues with that. That's one of the benefits, as we are ultimately responsible for it as a council. We also have officers from finance which have worked with us on the company side. Therefore, we are on top of those finances and no issue.
And just one other thing, if I might, Chair. Again, clearly, if obviously by exception, if obviously anything significant clearly happens in the meantime, then obviously we'd have an interim report, but something after the accounts would make sense.
I agree 100%. Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. In that case, if that finishes the debate, we will go on to the votes, please. In favour?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 9, the annual review of North Arts Trading Company's CCTV. Ian Cooper to present.
The report sets out some of the history of the company. See that kind of it had a nice peak in income, and then that sort of drop shows more commercial clients of the company moved away, went to other places they're monitoring. It now has then appointed a business development manager, previously Borough Council, and that's successful in finding, I guess, a niche for the company in terms of its contracts. And that has led to a steady income. As well for the income, the company also picks up about 1/3 of the total monitoring costs of the control room, which takes the pressure off of the councils who also pay towards that control room. That's effective in terms of mitigating costs of the council too. There was a joint shareholder and directors meeting a couple of weeks ago. At that meeting, we discussed the future of the company. Because there's now quite a few more public sector clients to the company, we're doing a review about whether it still needs to be there as a company, and so just challenge that, and then on that basis forward look as to actually, if it is going to carry the company, what's its target market? It can extend beyond the current market of this niche it's found. Obviously, probably unlikely to go purely into the commercial sector where it kind of lost the contracts before, but there are other places it can look for work. That work is going to be supported by the commercial team over at Stevenage Council. So that report will be feeding back at some point in the new year. And then we can then determine next steps in terms of how we report that back to yourselves before any final decision is made around the direction of the company. In terms of how it's going at the moment, it is generally making a sort of reasonable profit, and therefore it's sustainable as a company.
I have a question. In our budget review recently, there was budgeting for new CCTV equipment. Is that relative to this company?
Yes, under the agreement between the company and the partnership, the company contributes towards the cost of that, all capital costs for the control room, and therefore the cost to the council is net of that company contribution be higher without the company being there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Albert.
I'm not quite sure where this question goes, whether it's to you, Ian, or possibly to, Isabel as our sort of legal manager. Clearly the governance for this is slightly different to the things that we have talked about earlier on, because obviously that councillors attend across council CCTV executive, which obviously talks about the some elements of performance incidents and statistics and so on. I guess whether that sort of structure and how that structure fits with this committee and its structure and how whether these are a slight duplication in some senses. We obviously send three councillors to the CCTV executive, but equally, and obviously we have kind of offline discussions with Mr. Cooper in advance of those meetings. But clearly it's not, until now, probably hasn't been reported back to this meeting, but it just feels that there is a bit of maybe a duplication. I really sort of seek advice from officer colleagues, especially around that aspect. But obviously, thanks for the report.
Yeah. I think it's a necessary duplication. We're talking about two separate perspectives.
Yeah.
So the CCTV joint executive is looking at it from the partnership side and making sure that the four councils come together in a way to run the partnership in an effective way. Your role in this committee is from the company side, only acting as a shareholder, and appreciate whilst there's similarity in terms of everyone is interested in the cost of the control room and effectively the business of the company helps towards those costs. There's formally two different approaches to it. It probably is more confusing for you. I wear two hats as well. I act as the management, the representative of the management board of the partnership, but I also act as the shareholder rep for the company. I also try to wear a different hat to make sure that but yes, necessary duplication, I believe.
Very much. Any further questions?
No, just to say that Ian and I are two of the three councillors.
The recommendation is that the Cabinet Subcommittee note the report and that the Cabinet Subcommittee make recommendations on the content of future reports and annual reviews. Have a proposer, please. Councillor Valbryan. Now a seconder, please. Councillor Ian Albert. We move on to the debate. Yes, Councillor Albert.
Probably a similar question tomorrow, a similar comment to that. Again, I think this is a really, really valuable report, and bearing in mind the structure that Ian has set out there in his comments to my earlier question. I guess that the same issue around the sort of timing of the reports in relation to the company's annual meeting and obviously any interim reports either by exception or in year seems appropriate as per the other companies. But again, happy to be advised as to what you think, Ian, as in relation to the timing of those reports in terms of this separate role in relation to the company as opposed to the partnership ones that the meetings that Val and I go to.
The company now has its AGM usually around the start of the financial year, so around April, May time, when it's scheduled for. And we've just sort of spoken about this kind of review happening of the company and its future direction as well. That's planned for early in the calendar year, but obviously that'll be initial findings, and then there'll be more after that. So I guess it's looking like from the CTP executive, probably a meeting in advance of that annual general meeting. Right here, just make sure you're in the right places. In advance of that, and I guess we need to kind of work on trying to get the date in terms of when that will be to sort of schedule that inappropriately. Obviously noting that might not fit in with some of the other stuff that's happening in the other companies.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a balance. That won't be the final account for the CCTV company, but it probably will be an important milestone, I guess, in the direction of where it's going. So there might be some difficulty arranging dates to kind of work all the companies, and it might be as well quite a few shorter meetings on that basis.
May I recommend an email update after that initial meeting? And then the subcommittee can discuss and decide whether they feel there is the need to have a meeting prior to the next meeting we'll be having anyway. Does that sound good to you, councillors Albert and Brian?
Yes.
Yep, wonderful. Okay. Are there any further debate points? In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder. Can we go to the vote, please? In favour?
Chair, that motion is carried.
I close this meeting at 6:13 and thank everybody very much for coming.
Thank you.